opened this month's Bargain Bead Box. The warm fall colors instantly reminded me of crisp evenings and cozy sweaters. For this tutorial, I'm using the earthy petrified wood, deep mahogany obsidian, bronzite, and a mix of crystals and antique bronze accents to create a bracelet that feels like autumn wrapped around your wrist. So let's get started! Today in this memory wire bracelet, I'm going to go ahead and use the little beads that you can put on the ends of the bracelet itself so that it looks like another little bead that's at the end. I'll show you how to put this on with glue here at the very end because it's going to be the same process, just the extra step of knowing where to cut off the memory wire so you have enough room to be able to have your bead fit there. So I've already got the one glued on. I've had it sitting here for probably, I'd say close to about 2.5 hours now. So it's on there. When you use the E6000 glue, it's still kind of movable a little bit. I can twist it back and forth a little bit, so I may still end up putting another little small amount of glue in between here, this bead, and then the first bead that we end up starting off with in our bracelet. I'll figure that out at the end, just to see if I need that extra little help there. So that's what this little gold bead is right here. Now I do have one of these bead stoppers sitting here, and when I was practicing the pattern for it and everything, I had the bead stopper sitting somewhere around in there on really close to the end down here. That's to make sure that the beads don't get too close to the end and start putting too much pressure on it before the glue has a chance to actually dry. So that's why I used a bead stopper, and that's why it's in the supply list. So we'll quickly go through the pattern. It's going to be the pattern using all of these beads, and we're going to do 7 rotations of it. So you're going to need 7 of your largest bead, and then your smallest bead is going to be your bicones. These are the bronzite beads, if I remember correctly. And then you'll need 8 of your bicone beads, because that's what we're going to start off with. So start off with your bicone. Now this is not going to be part of the pattern. I'm just making sure that we have a large bead, just in case I do have to go back here and make a loop if this does not work out. Then I'll have a large bead at the end. So go ahead and just put a bicone on. To start the actual pattern, we're going to start off with an 11-0. We're going to put an 11-0 almost in between every single bead. There's only going to be a few spaces where it's not going to have an 11-0, and I'll show you that. So start off with an 11. We're going to start off with the next smallest bead, which is going to be our 4mm mahogany obsidian, and then an 11-0. The next one is going to be the matte crystal rondelles that came in the kit, and then an 11-0. And then this is going to be one of those situations where we don't add 11-0s in between everything. This one we're going to pick up one of the spacers, one of the flat spacers. We're going to pick up our red glass bead, glass rondelle, and then another spacer. So that's going to be basically your next bead in line. So that's what it looks like so far. Just like that. Now we're going to go ahead and pick up an 11-0. Your next bead to add is going to be one of your, come on guy, focus. I knew that was going to happen. I have a whole lot of stuff on my mat, sorry. But the next one is going to be the petrified wood beads. Now on these, I actually picked out 14 of the beads that were much lighter in color. When I was doing this pattern and I had some of the darker color ones sitting right up against the bronzite like this, it looked like it was too dark. It felt like I needed to have something that's a little bit lighter. So I picked out some of the most lightest ones, and there's 14 of them sitting here because that's what you will need for this particular pattern. So that goes on next. And then pick up your 11-0. And then we're going to put on our bronzite beads. Before we do that, we're going to put one of our bead caps on to where the bead cap is facing in this direction. So it will hug your bronzite bead. So it's going to go on like that. Then we're going to put a bronzite bead on, and then we'll put our second bead cap on in the opposite direction. That way it hugs our bronzite. Now we're going to add another 11-0, and essentially we're going to go downwards in size. Our next one is going to be our wood bead, petrified wood, 11-0. This is the section where we're adding our spacers plus our red glass rondelles. So pick up a spacer. And I know some of this is having a hard time focusing, so I will definitely show you everything before I leave as far as the pattern. But that's the next little section: spacer, a red rondelle, and then another spacer. Then pick up another 11-0. Our next one is going to be our blue rondelle crystals. We're going to put that on. An 11-0. Our next one is going to be our mahogany obsidian. And then an 11-0. And this is where we end with our bicone. So that first bicone was technically not part of the pattern, and then our second bicone is part of the pattern. So that way you end and start with a bicone. So here's what the bracelet should look like so far. So this is that first bicone over here off to the left. So that one kind of sort of doesn't count. That's just our starting bead. So you start with, make sure I can get it close enough to where everybody can understand what I'm saying. You did an 11-0, mahogany obsidian, 11-0, the blue crystal rondelle, 11-0, your metal spacer, your red crystal rondelle, a metal spacer, 11-0, one of your petrified woods, an 11-0, a bead cap, your bronzite bead, a bead cap. Then we go backwards. We do an 11-0, a petrified wood, an 11-0, your metal spacer, your red rondelle bead, metal spacer, 11-0, crystal blue rondelle, 11-0, mahogany obsidian, 11-0, and end with your bicone. So now you would start the pattern over again. So you'd start with your 11-0 and then do this all over again. We're going to do this, like I said, a total of 7 times. So once you run out of your 7th bronzite bead that you have out, then you should have just one remaining of each one of these. Well, 2 of the spacer beads here, but one remaining of each of the big beads here, and then you'll know you'll be done. So go ahead and get your pattern completed, and doing this 7 rotations should get you about 3 rotations of your memory wire done. So go ahead and get that completed, and get it all down to the end down here carefully. If you haven't let this sit for very long, then do it very, very carefully. If you need to, though, you can have it sit like I did for a couple hours. And then I'll meet you back and I will show you how to cut it off and then how to add on that bead if you're not familiar with it. To get this bracelet finished off, we are going to have to get ourselves prepped in order to get that done. So I've got everything laying out. I just have a post-it note sitting here, just a little pad of paper. You can always use scrap paper if you wanted to, junk mail, because God only knows that we get a ton of junk mail here in the United States. You can use that too if you wanted to. I usually use this little post-it notepad. So I've got my E6000 glue, and then I have a toothpick also, because I usually do everything with a toothpick whenever I'm doing something small like this. Also have my other little bead cap down here, or end cap. Not really a bead cap, it's an end cap. Alright, so this is going to be the first time I've been doing this in a very long time, so please, dear Lord, let's have this work out right. So I've got all my beads already wrapped down to the end of the bracelet, and I'm doing it somewhat loosely. So if there is a little bit of movement in this bracelet, then I'm going to be okay with that. I would rather have a little bit of movement rather than having it so tight down here at the very end, which you can't really see with the camera angle. There we go, having it so tight down here at the end that it pops those ends off. That's what I don't want. So I do believe what you would have to do, when you look at your memory wire cutters, you have quite a bit of length in between this side of the cutter and the center portion. what it looks to me like is all you have to do is get your memory wire cutters inside the memory wire and let that last bead sit up against that last, or that left hand side of the cutters, and then I think you would cut off right there. So hopefully this works, and hopefully my beads don't go flying. Okay, so far so good. They didn't really go flying just yet. And then I said I was going to get myself prepared, and I didn't. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now I need to get some glue out. So do this beforehand. Don't forget to do the glue. I got too excited and was trying to get that all done. So do this beforehand. Just get a little small amount out on your notepad. And now you get to see me fumble around with it and try to get the cap back on without losing the beads on the bracelet. Of course I would do this. Alright, so I'm still holding the beads down on the bracelet. Now I'm going to pick up just a little bit with the toothpick, and you have to kind of gauge. This tube of E6000 has actually been opened quite a while ago, so it may be a little too old and I may have to use a newer one. But all I do is I just put quite a bit down at the end, down here, and I do a lot only because the E6000 is really nice. It's very, what's the right word? Very pliable, I guess, to where you can add your bead onto the end here. And then what I'm doing is I'm kind of moving it in a circle a little bit to try to get that glue to stay inside the bead. You can even use the other end of your toothpick, and as you're guiding the bead onto the end of the memory wire, you can try to push more of that glue down in there. But I just kind of twist it around and get it on there until it's just about where it needs to be. Now if this glue attaches to the bicone sitting right there, I'm perfectly fine with that, because that will help keep everything together a little bit better. Now what you need to do is you need to let this rest for at least another couple of hours or so. After about 10 to 15 minutes, it's going to be to where you can probably at least pick up the bracelet and look at it and play around with it and everything. But for it to really set really well, you're going to want it to sit overnight. So this is the first one that I added at the very beginning, and then this is the one that I just added just now. So you can kind of see a little bit of glue there. It will dry clear, typically with the E6000. It typically does not dry any other color or anything like that, at least not what I've experienced with using it. Oh, see, there went the bead. Shoot. Alrighty. I was moving around too much, seeing that's what we don't want to do, is move it around too much. Alright, so I lost my bicone in the process too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up just a little bit more glue again. I'm going to try to get down in the center portion of the glue. And then I'm going to leave my bracelet alone. I'm not going to move it around this time. There we go. So now I'm going to put the bicone back on there. So it's going to get quite a bit of glue. And then I'm going to put this guy back on there. And when your glue is somewhat movable, like after about 10 to 15 minutes or so, you can always, my beads are kind of loose now, you can always peel off some of this glue. Some of the glue will be easily peeled off, so that would be an option too. Okay, now I'm having issues. Let's see how I can fix this, just in case somebody else is having problems with this. Okay, I'm moving my beads down with my left hand to give me some more room. And then I'm trying to get these beads to move along with me. Let me get some pliers. Maybe that'll help me. And I'm leaving this in the video just in case somebody else is having issues with something similar. So I'm going to hold on to the memory wire with my pliers I'm going to go ahead and remove that excess glue off to the side. If you saw those chunks, I just put those chunks off to the side. There we go. Now my beads are down there again. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get a little bit of extra glue out this time because I think that one little spot of glue has kind of dried up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get another spot of glue out. And then close this up. I told my husband that this would only take me about 20 minutes to record, and this little section may take me 20 minutes to record. Now I can't even get the thing screwed back on. Okay, it's not going back on. I'll play with that in a minute. Alright, I'm going to use the clean side of the toothpick, try to get down into the center of the little glob that we made. And then we're going to try this again. So we're going to put a little bit of glue down here on the bottom and just wrap it around the edge, just like that. So I just took the toothpick and I wrapped it around the edge. Then we're going to put this little guy on in the same fashion. And then just kind of wiggle it around and twirl it, wiggle and twirl until it does not move anymore. And then you can use your toothpick, kind of spread that glue out around those two beads if you prefer to. Since this is the first time I'm doing this in a very, very long time, I may just leave it like this and leave the glue sitting there. That may not be the best thing to do, but like I said, I don't do this very often. I usually just use some pliers, some round pliers, and make a loop at the end, but I'm trying to do something a little different just to see how it works and see what it looks like. So now I'm just going to let this sit like this. I'm not going to play with it anymore because I don't want it to come apart again. So there we go. So there is your finished bracelet that you can still kind of see off to the side just like this, and I'll have a better picture posted here after this little clip so that way you can see the bracelet finished a little bit better. Here's the finished memory wire bracelet, and I just love how the petrified wood, mahogany, obsidian, bronzite, and crystals came together with those antique bronze accents. It feels warm, earthy, and perfectly cozy for fall. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and if you're on the YouTube mobile app, I would appreciate a hype. And stay tuned, I plan to do a necklace tutorial next with an extra surprise at the end.